So when influence and evidence have just one achievement we would like to share. The school is become the best school out of 12,000 school. 12,000 school. This is from our. Uh, I would like I Catherine. I know the time is, but to just
policies. It takes time. Just one policies into the cabinet. It will pass near futures, but still it is not pass. So such kinds of activities sometimes takes the time and slow process. Disability database establishment. We, we have to establish the database. Then government, other stakeholders and plan can support with them for their optimistic or holistic development. Level-wise intervention, national level, we have a good coordination with the Ministry of Education and Department of Education to bring inclusive education policies. I already said that policies in the cabinet um, will send to parliament and then parliament will pass the policy, then we will implement jointly. Supported the purchase high quality braille press for Nepal Association of the Blind. We have provided the quality braille press and provided to the organization and they prepare the produce braille and then distribute the other children. District level. District Education Office, Plan International, Plan International Nepal, School Management Committee, and other NGO partners jointly planning the program activities for the inclusive education at the beginning. Then the all official and NGO partner, SMCs, parents provided support to complete the successfully that project. So if we started the close coordination with all concerned stakeholders, then we will able to complete and success program activities. And that means children with disabilities find such kinds of good opportunity for their future. School communities individual level. Integrated issues school and special school were constructed at well equipped. I already said 11 school in Parvat Baglung Magdi. 400 child with disabilities including other 500 children benefited directly. When we provided such kinds of support, they have they are benefited. I also missed to some things. We also provided teacher training, community awareness, education, and other things, other parenting education for the especially focusing to children with disabilities in that area. 567, 66, 86 children received general treatment and reconstructive surgery, received assistive devices and school support. As a result, all of them have access to education now. Yes, here are also our partners who had done that kinds of work in Parbat, like the Baglung. They also proud to, to do such kinds of activities in that area from their organization. Findings and evaluation. Findings of evaluation and studies. The evaluation and research studies, what they recommend and they find out. Vocational education for deaf students is found is good progress in that area. Out of school children with disabilities enrolled in school because we already mapping that district, then find out the children with disabilities and enroll in the school. Schooling and hostel facilities of children with disabilities provided. Children with intellectual disability do not have adequate playing materials for learning and fun. That is the all kinds of weaknesses. Communities do not have sufficient resources to promote education of children with disabilities. Finding and evaluation regularly. Attitude of parents and teacher is not very positive to ask the children with intellectual disability. It is already said in the morning, one participant, if the intellectual disability children enter into the schools, the teacher, sorry, uh, gender and gender and gender equality and the girls' right. Gender equality and girls' right is core cross-cutting issues that has been addressed during the project cycle. Use gender-aware and transformative tools during the planning, implementing, and the evaluation of the project intervention. Gender awareness also included in disability inclusion training and awareness session. Collected disaggregated data, girls, boys, men and women, Dalit, data of children, persons with disabilities who are directly benefited. It is the short presentation of that project. In in the others part, in others part, our CSP clearly spell out to support children with disabilities, girls, and marginalized children from marginalized communities. So we are also such kinds of direction of the CSP. We make the program activities in communities. Now we are supporting ECCD, parenting education, conceived to 8 years and then basic education for children. Not only other children, we are especially focusing to children with disabilities. And our volunteers, our partners, and others networking in our communities. So, if we find in the remote area of the disabled children, we catch up and enroll in the special school and resource schools. Still, there is there are many lapses and the children are staying in the home. But we need the financial support and other things. It is the main responsibility of the government, then as well as civil society and international communities. International communities also should be focused to special edu- education for children. So, yes, yes. So uh, now I'm talking to you with you. We are planning to not only ECCD to basic education. We are also providing the support with the reading and learning, child reading and learning. That means we are providing support to those children who are studying in the standard 1, 2, 3, who provided many law teaching and learning materials to them and substitute devices for the disabled children. Oh, it is it is the time over, so I'm sorry to and I could not explain the other things. Thank you very much. Sorry, listener.
Thank you so much, Prakash. I know there's a great tradition in Nepal to talk for a long time, and I'm sorry to cut you short because it was really interesting. I'm sure people would love to talk more to you later today and tomorrow. Now I'm gonna pass on to our two colleagues from CBM. First Anita and then Sean. Or whichever, both at the same time.
Well, good afternoon. At the end of a day, when so many ideas have already been shared, and so many ideas have been, challenges have been presented, how do you give a presentation? So we go to the next slide, please. So excuse me if I don't stick to my presentation. It's going to be a little bit schizophrenic here. Partially presentation, partially bringing together the ideas we have shared. But I thought it would be wrong for me to start without giving some background about CBM in terms of where we are coming from in inclusive education. For those who do not know, we also work in health, education, and rehabilitation or habilitation. And we work in the areas of physical, mental health, eyes, and ears. So, cross disability. So, but I am only today going to look at education. And for us, we support and advocate for inclusive education as the most appropriate option for learners with a disability. But we recognize that this approach requires specialist support, is often linked with inclusive education resource facilities, and requires the development of local skills and capacity. And if somebody is, okay, perfect. But I would like to say also, inclusive education for us is for everyone. It's very interesting. You know, I've been in this field since 1990 was the first year I ever joined. So I've been around a little while. And if we look at the history of development in terms of education for learners with disabilities, we are coming from special schools tradition. And we are coming today to say inclusive education is for everyone, not just about learners with disabilities. What about the children in the class? And these are the children we haven't discussed in the last few days, maybe tomorrow. What about the children who have a temporary hearing difficulty? They might need a hearing aid for a few months. They might need to go to the health service to get antibiotics and then come back to school. But we are not looking at these at all. And yet I know from my own practice and ear and hearing care ear screening that sometimes between 40 and 60% of children not only fail the ear screening, but actually have some kind of mild to moderate hearing loss, either temporary or permanent. So I think when we look at inclusive education, we need to look at the whole. Because this, if you don't have good hearing, I'm just going to end up not actually sitting in the class and I'm wondering what's going on with this microphone. And that's what it feels like for a child who has a mild to moderate hearing loss. I'm not talking profoundly deaf. What about the child who's just lost their parent, or one of their parents has just died? What about the social needs of children during those times? So I think it's really great that we are here, what we would call a mainstream organization plan, working together, and we are working also together in the field as well as together here. And I think this is a way that we need to think about going forward and hasn't been discussed yet. I already mentioned yesterday, and from my approach, I do not see that you cannot stay with education alone. You have to work with a multi-sectoral approach. You need to work with health. Education doesn't start in school. Education starts at birth. Health services need to be accessed at birth. And I've been to several programs where they say, oh yeah, we detect, we find them, they have eye problem, they have hearing problem. Oh, that's good. Then we have early intervention. Oh, that's good. What is early intervention? Oh, well, we give a hearing aid and then 6 weeks later, that's it. Then they go to school when they are 5 or 6. Excuse me. You don't see that child from 0 to 6. That whole area of opportunity is lost. Then you have the child coming to school and really tough to be included. So you need to work with social welfare and health. But you also need to work, and we know from with the persons with disabilities, we need to work with the community and families. We need to be involved in creating community awareness, and we do need to work with the specialists. We can't diagnose hearing loss without audiologists. We can't. Also, we need speech therapists for many learners with disabilities. I'm not going to go into all the different models, but I would like to say that something that we in CBM, as I said, we are coming from a special school model in many cases, not all, but we will present on one model where we are transitioning and working with special schools to become support for inclusive education and actually models of inclusive education. And I pass on to my colleague Anita to do that. Sorry.
So thank you, Sean. And the resource center model, which I'll be explaining, is from the Indian perspective. And in our country strategy, when we decided that we have invested a lot on the special schools and we just can't leave them just because we are moving towards the inclusive education. So we d- uh, we we decided that why can't we develop the special schools to be a resource center. So when we started our dialogue with the special schools, initially they agreed to be a resource center, but they didn't know what to do as a resource center, because all these days they were institutionalized as a special school and focusing on one specific category of disability or even cross disabilities. So when we started explaining what will be the vision of a resource center, it was we actually we told them that it has to be recognized at the district level and the state level for the activities which they're implementing, and also they should be providing technical support and deliver quality education, and also be a valuable resource for the teachers, policymakers, and other stakeholders um, um, in all levels. So a resource center for inclusive education. So the areas of intervention when we talk of, we were thinking about the quality education, that is where they provide early intervention and other rehabilitation services. And next comes the development of professionals in the field of inclusive education. So that's where really we are lacking. And of course, advocacy and networking with the government departments. And then the skill development for youth and families of children with disabilities. So these are the areas of intervention. And when we came out with the actual framework, this is what we have designed. And if you can see the resource center framework, the areas of intervention, as I said in my previous slide, it focuses on quality education and rehabilitation services. And when we say actually the quality education, the activities, few of the activities which they are already implementing, like the early intervention, the capacity building programs, and the non-formal education, and the open schooling, that is basically for the dropout children, and the home-based programs. So these were some of the activities, and we also had the formation of after-school clubs. So that is something new for them. And these activities will basically result in having some model programs and also resource materials for the resource center, and also development of after school clubs. So the next one, with the human resource development for inclusive education, most of the special schools, they were running training centers, the training centers which are accredited by the Rehabilitation Council of India, which is a statutory body of the government of India. So the short term diploma degree program, so all the different diploma programs and the embed, the master programs, we were trying to focus mostly to have on inclusive education. So they are licensing actually with the Rehabilitation Council to have an inclusive education course. And with the advocacy and networking, it's to form children groups or the children parliaments where children themselves can advocate for their needs and rights, and also awareness program on inclusive development. So these were some of the activities on advocacy. And skill building, of course, there are adults with disabilities and we just can't leave them. So a few income generation programs and parent support groups, or even pre-occasional and occasional training programs. So these were some of the activities which we have suggested. And when we talk of a resource center, it's not mandatory that every special school should start off with all these activities. We insisted, or we informed them that whichever is their specialization, if they are focusing whole and soul on education, they can only focus on the quality education. And anyone who's providing occasional training, they can take that component. So this is only a framework or a guideline which we have designed for them to adapt it, but it's left up to them based on their expertise, which they want to do and what they can do.
And to end, actually I forgot, we actually have a little leaflet here on CBM's approaches in inclusive education in Spanish and English. But to end, I think a challenge for us all. Our strapline in CBM is together we can do more. And so all the strands that we have discussed, all the partnerships that we have discussed, if we're really genuine about reaching out to the furthest village, to the most least accessible village, it's only together we can do more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for these excellent and very different presentations. It has been a day with lots and lots of presentations, lots of information to process. So I'm sure you'll all have very exciting dreams about inclusive education tonight. I actually have a question to the panel. It was a question that was given to me after our education session earlier today, when someone asked, we have all these different models of education being shared here. We have, examples of practical tools, such as the teaching training tools that you showed. We have examples of country-specific approaches and challenges and policies. We have these ways of linking education with other cross-cutting themes, but how can we make sure we don't reinvent the wheel? What is the best way for us to actually work together to share learning and to share information? Are there any good platforms where we can just all put all of this and find what we need and then seek out, who's the best partner to work with, who has resources on this and so on? If any of you want to share any reflections on that, that would be great.
Sorry, can I jump in? As an initial reaction would be IDDC and ENET. I'll explain. So IDDC, we've already mentioned, is the International Disability Development Consortium, where a few of us are members, but we have an inclusive education task group, including PAN. But it's not just for disability organisations; it's also for mainstream organisations working in this field. That's important. So that's one kind of. We're talking about global networks that can bring together this information. But I possibly should point over to ENET people. But ENET is a global education. Enabling education network, which has a whole load of resources on this kind of stuff. I'm looking at Helen because she's the representative over there. But I'd say, I don't know if you want to say anything, Helen, about that, because it's sort of tied to that question. Sorry, I'm just...
ENET is very much for responding to any query. So you can contact us via our website. You can ask for materials. You can download things. We can send you things by post, whether you're a parent or a teacher or an official or an NGO. So there's lots of information there. But also we can put you in touch with other members who are struggling with similar issues. So we can kind of link you up with people dealing with similar challenges to you. And it's very simple. It's just by emailing me or emailing the address on the website, and we will, link you up or respond as much as we can.
We'd just like to
Thank
add
you.
to that. I think it's fantastic, the concept of networking and sharing. And I think for individual teams who are working away at the country level, it's important to know, and especially at national, in donor offices, there is no such thing as a perfect model.
Yeah.
There's actually just no such thing, and there's never going to be. And maybe that's the strength of inclusive education, that there's not one singular formula, that it actually is about flexibility, responsiveness, looking at the human condition as it is and evolving with that. So the fact that there will never be a singular model is probably a good thing. So the only thing we can do is share experience and learn from it.
Okay, just would like to reflect on the same way that is not a perfect model to just to follow by any country. Like from our experience, like what we have started is like we started with the primary school, but whenever we have started with the primary school, we got that the student who are coming from the community in age of 5 or 6, that is they have some sort of developmental delays, like that they have, that is that we lost the opportunity in the early years. So what happens, we have to go from primary school to the community and started another program, the pregnancy to 3 years. And the way you mentioned, like it should be started from zero, and we started from pregnancy because during the pregnancy period there is also some sort of intervention is needed. So to make a primary school inclusive, we have to start from the pregnancy to 3 years, then 3 to 5 years child development center, and then go to the primary school. And here our approach is, we say that our one is not the model, it's the approach, the way we like the include the all the stakeholders in the system, that we need to actually make it functional. If we can make it functional, then actually it's possible for making inclusive society or inclusive school.
And there's a responsibility of donors to allow that flexibility, because we all get married to our models because we've invested so much time, and you want to hold on to it. And I think that's one of the strengths of the Bangladesh team. If it doesn't work, they change it and they get supported to do that. So I hope that donors also kind of respond to that need for flexibility.
I think a very good point. I just wanted to add is actually, we have country offices, and at the country level, we should be doing more to find out who else is working in that country in the same field, particularly PLAN, CBM, Site Savers. I'm working on Leonard Cheshire Disability, Handicap International. We are all here. But sometimes we also have a country office. Sometimes we don't. But if we have a country office, and certainly from even yesterday and today,